They told the guards to look inside the chamber, not because of what was in there, but because of who. The year is 2147. The planet is Chiron 9, a frozen rock orbiting a dying star, light years beyond the reach of law or mercy. A black site prison carved into obsidian cliffs, steel and stone fused together like a scar across the planet's face. Officially, it doesn't exist. It houses the worst beings humanity has ever encountered. And tonight it hosts an experiment deep inside the fortress, beneath layers of titanium vaults and plasma shields, lies the monster containment chamber, a circular arena of reinforced transparent alloy, surrounded by observation decks and humming machinery. It was designed to answer a single question: what survives longer, a man or the monsters? Warden Voss believes he already knows. Voss stands rigid behind the observation glass, hands clasped behind in his back, uniform immaculate. He has built his reputation on breaking the unbreakable. He believes in systems, in fear, in control. No one survives the chamber, he says calmly. Around him, scientists monitor vitals, energy levels spike, containment fields shimmer blue. The creatures inside prowl the shadows. 4 of them tonight, recovered from a crashed extraterrestrial vessel discovered drifting near Saturn's rings. Their species unknown, their biology barely understood. They are tall, limbs too long for symmetry, skin like liquid night, eyes that reflect no light at all. They do not roar, they do not hiss, they watch. Then the prisoner is brought in. No name, no history, just a number burned in a steel collar at his throat, D9341. He walks barefoot across the chamber floor, shackled wrists, head bowed, a black hair falling across his eyes. He does not look up at the creatures. He does not look up at the guards. He does not look afraid. Subject D9341, Voss announces into the intercom, you have been selected for behavioral observation. Survive for 1 hour and your sentence will be reconsidered. A lie. There has never been reconsideration. The shackles unlock, the door seals shut with a hydraulic scream. Silence. The creatures begin to circle. One moves first, a blur of jointed limbs and bone-white claws slicing through the air. The prisoner steps aside, effortless, too effortless. The claw misses his face by millimeters. He doesn't flinch. Another creature lunges from behind, jaws splitting open in a bloom of needle teeth. The prisoner tilts his head. The teeth stop. Not because they miss, because the creature stops mid-strike. As if frozen, the observation deck erupts and whispers, what is it doing? Why isn't it attacking? The creature trembles. Its elongated body shudders. A low vibration pulses through the chamber floor, not from machinery, from the monsters. The prisoner slowly raises his eyes. They are not normal eyes. They are not even human. They glow faintly at first, a pale silver light spreading from pupil to iris like frost overtaking glass. The temperature in the chamber drops 10 degrees in seconds. Condensation blooms on the inside of the observation window. Voss leans forward. Continue the test, he orders. The other creatures screech, a sound like metal tearing underwater, and attack together. The prisoner moves, and the world seems to slow. He slips between claws and snapping jaws like smoke through fingers. His body bends at impossible angles, every motion precise, efficient. Controlled, a claw grazes his shoulder. Black blood spills. He looks at it, curious. Then he looks at the creature who wounded him, and something changes. The lights flicker. The containment field spikes violently. Inside the chamber, gravity shifts. The creature that struck him suddenly convulses. Its limbs twist inward. Bones crack like gunshots. It collapses to the floor, no, not torn apart, but folded, compressed as if crushed by invisible hands. The other monsters recoil. They retreat to the far edge of the arena. They are afraid. The scientists stare at the monitors in disbelief. Energy output is off the charts. It's not coming from the chamber. Then where is it coming from? All eyes shift to the prisoner. He stands at the center, breathing steadily, blood still dripping from his shoulder, but the wound is closing. Flesh knitting together in seconds, he tilts his head slightly, studying the remaining creatures like specimens. One of them tries to flee, slamming against the containment barrier in desperate panic. It doesn't attack the man. It tries to escape him. Voss's jaw tightens. Impossible, he mutters. The prisoner takes a step forward. The floor fractures beneath his bare foot. cracks spiderweb outward, glowing faintly silver. The creature nearest to him collapses without being touched. Its elongated skull dents inward as though struck by a sledgehammer made of gravity itself. Tempts one last attack, a suicidal charge fueled by instinct. The prisoner raises his hand just slightly. The creature lifts off the ground mid-leap. Suspended, it thrashing in the air, its eyeless face turns toward him. And for the first time since its capture, it makes a sound that resembles terror. The prisoner's glowing eyes brighten, implode. Silence swallows the chamber. Only one remains. It crouches in the corner, limbs wrapped around itself, shivering. Predator reduced to prey. Now, the prisoner lowers his hand. He walks slowly toward it. Each step echoes like a countdown. The creature presses itself against the barrier, claws scraping uselessly against reinforced alloy. The prisoner stops inches away. He kneels and whispers something. The audio sensors glitch. Static bursts across the speakers. No one hears the words, but they see the result. The creature goes still, not dead, not injured. Submissive, it bows its head. The observation deck erupts in chaos. What is he? How is this possible? Voss's face drains of color because he remembers something. A classified transmission from years ago. A distress signal intercepted near the edge of known space. An alien language partially translated before the signal cut out. One phrase repeated over and over. The devourer walks among the stars, turns slowly back to the chamber. The prisoner is no longer kneeling. He is standing and looking directly at the observation glass at Voss. He smiles. It is not a human smile. Lock it down. And Voss shouts, increase containment field to maximum. Energy surges. Alarm lights flash inside the chamber. The air begins to distort around the prisoner, bending like heat over asphalt. The silver glow spreads across his skin in branching patterns, like veins of light beneath flesh. The last creature remains bowed at his feet, loyal, not recognizing that the prisoner raises his hand again. But this time, he doesn't aim at the monsters. He aims upward. The reinforced transparent alloy of the observation deck begins to crack. Hairline fractures split across the glass. Scientists stumble back in panic. Voss refuses to move. And you contained, he says, through clenched teeth. This facility was built to hold gods. The prisoner's voice echoes inside the chamber without speakers. Deep layer. You build it, he says, calmly to keep me asleep. But the cracks widen, alarms shift from red to white, a signal reserved for planetary level threats. In the control room, a technician screams. He's interfacing with the reactor core. He's now on power. He's rewriting it. The lights go out. For one heartbeat, everything is dark. Then the chamber explodes with silver light. When visibility returns, the containment field is gone. The glass is shattered. The monsters lie motionless, and not dead, but kneeling. The prisoner stands among the debris, unshackled collar melted away. Guards rush in, weapons raised. He doesn't look at them. He looks at Voss. And for a brief second, Voss sees something impossible in those lowing eyes. Not rage, recognition. You don't remember? The prisoner says softly. Voss's breath catches. Images flash in his mind. Suppressed memories claw into the surface. A laboratory years ago. A child floating in a containment tank. Silver light beneath his skin. Voss standing beside the glass, authorizing the first experiment. They didn't capture an alien monster from the stars. They created one. The prison was never meant to keep criminals. It was meant to keep him contained. The ground begins to tremble violently. Outside, across the frozen wasteland of Charon 9, the planet's crust fractures in glowing lines visible from orbit. In deep space, something ancient shifts. Responding, the kneeling creatures lift their heads in unison, as if hearing a distant call. The prisoner turns away from Voss and walks toward the open breach in the wall, toward the storm-ridden horizon of the alien world. Sirens wail, evacuation orders blare. Voss falls to his knees, whispering one broken word. The prisoner pauses at the edge of the shattered chamber. He looks up at the black sky, and the stars begin to move, not drifting. Moving, as if something vast is approaching. The silver glow intensifies. The creatures rise behind him, not as enemies, as heralds. And just before the facility collapses into the chasm below, the prisoner whispers into the void, "I am awake." The screen cuts to black. It is carved in the bedrock of a hostile planet designated Virex 12, a world of endless electrical storms and toxic oceans that glow faintly green beneath a fractured sky. Enough, the air outside the prison burns human lungs in under 3 minutes. Winds scream across the barren plains at 300 kilometers per hour, carrying shards of crystalline sand sharp enough to strip paint from steel. No life is native. Nothing grows. Nothing survives except the prison. Gravehold rises from the planet's equatorial ridge like a blade driven into flesh. Layers of armored plating encase its exterior, reinforced with meteor alloy harvested from asteroid belts. Defense turrets rotate constantly along its perimeter, scanning the horizon through thermal and motion sensors. Anti-air cannons track the storm clouds in case anything descends from orbit unannounced. The prison does not trust the sky. A single landing platform juts from the eastern side of the structure, suspended above 1,000 meter drop into a ravine lit by molten fissures. Supply ships arrive once every 6 months. They dock, unload, and leave within the hour. No one lingers. Inside, the prison is a labyrinth of corridors lit by cold, white strips embedded in the ceiling. The walls are seamless, titanium, composite, smooth and reflective, giving the unsettling impression of walking inside a machine rather than a building. There are no windows. No clocks. Time is measured by scheduled lighting shifts and nutrient dispensations. Every movement is tracked, every breath recorded. The inmates housed here are not ordinary criminals. They are war architects, rogue bioengineers, enhanced soldiers who disobey direct planetary command, and individuals' abilities defy current scientific models. Gravehold was built for the impossible cases, the ones Earth could not execute publicly and could not risk setting free. Each prisoner is sealed in an adaptive containment cell designed specifically around their threat profile. Some cells are cryogenic, maintaining sub-zero temperatures to slow metabolic functions. Others are electromagnetic cages that disrupt neural signals. A few are suspended in magnetic levitation chambers, preventing physical contact with any surface. The architecture of confinement here is not uniform. It is personal. At the center of the facility lies the core, an enormous cylindrical shaft plunging hundreds of meters down into the planet's crust. Within it hums the primary fusion reactor that powers everything: life support systems, gravity stabilizers, defense grids, neural dampeners. The core is both heart and spine. If it fails, the planet itself will finish what the prison began. Above the core, encased behind triple layered security vaults, sits the command deck. From there, Warden Elias Varn oversees every system. He is a tall, severe man in his late 50s, hair silvered at the temples, posture rigid as the walls around him. His uniform is immaculate, dark charcoal with insignia that glints under sterile lighting. He does not raise his voice. He does not need to. Varn believes in structure. He believes in containment. He believes that any being, no matter how dangerous, can be controlled with enough preparation and force. But Gravehold is his proof. Security protocols run 24 hours a day. Autonomous drone patrol corridors in silent formations, their lenses glowing faint blue as they scan for irregularities in heat signatures and biometric data. Surveillance feeds strictly across the command deck's curved holographic displays. Algorithms analyze behavioral patterns, searching for anomalies before they become incidents. Even the guards are augmented. Neural implants connect them directly to the prison's network, feeding real-time data into their optic nerves. They do not rely solely on sight or sound. They perceive fluctuations in electromagnetic fields and pressure shifts in the air. Every guard carries a pulse rifle capable of firing concussive plasma rounds calibrated to incapacitate without breaching hull integrity. Lethal force is authorized, but rarely needed. The environment itself is lethal enough. Beyond the standard cell blocks lies the experimental wing, the most restricted sector in Gravehold. Access requires biometric confirmation from the Warden and 2 senior scientists simultaneously. The doors to this wing are thicker, the lights dimmer, the air cooler. This is where the prison tests its boundaries. Within the experimental wing are containment chambers designed not just to imprison, but to study. Transparent alloy walls allow observation from elevated control rooms. Floors can shift from solid to liquid state polymer at the press of a button. Atmospheric composition can be altered in seconds. Oxygen thinned, gravity inverted, radiation introduced in controlled bursts. The chambers are built to simulate extremes. Some inmates are brought here for evaluation, others for experimentation. Officially, the data collected advances security measures for the rest of humanity. Unofficially, it satisfies a darker curiosity. How far can the human body and mind be pushed before it breaks? The most infamous chamber sits at the end of the wing, behind a circular vault door etched with hazard glyphs in 3 languages. It is known simply as the pit. Unlike other rooms, the pit has no visible cameras inside. Observation occurs through indirect quantum imaging, preventing interference from unknown energy outputs. The floor is reinforced with gravitic anchors that stabilize localized distortions. The walls are layered with reactive shielding capable of absorbing kinetic impacts far beyond standard munitions. No inmate has lasted more than 12 minutes inside the pit during testing scenarios. Most last less than 5. The prison operates under a single doctrine: nothing escapes. The planet itself is a barrier. Even if a prisoner breached their cell, disabled the guards, and reached the surface, the toxic atmosphere and relentless storms would finish the job. Escape pods are coded to command deck biometrics. Transport ships will not land without encrypted clearance from Earth Command. Gravehold is considered escape-proof. Yet beneath the hum of machinery and the steady pulse of the core, there is a tension that runs through the corridors like a hairline fracture in glass. The staff feel it during silent shifts. The scientists sense it while reviewing anomalous data spikes that vanish before explanation. Enough. Even Warden Vaughn has noticed subtle irregularities, momentary power fluctuations, temper drops in sealed hallways, faint distortions on surveillance feeds that cannot be traced. The planet outside rages endlessly, lightning splitting the sky in blinding veins of white fire. Each strike illuminates prison's armored shell for a fraction of a second, revealing its scale against the wasteland. In those flashes, Gravehold looks less like a fortress and more like a cage. It descended through the electric storms of Varix, 12 like a falling blade, hull glowing red from atmospheric friction, engines cutting only seconds before impact. Lightning struck its wings twice during descent. It did not deviate from course. On the landing platform of Gravehold, armed guards stood in 2 perfect lines, pulse rifles charged, visors down. No one spoke. The wind howled over the platform's edge, carrying toxic dust that scraped against their armor like fingernails. The ship's ramp lowered with a hydraulic hiss. Only one figure walked out. No escort, no chains visible. Just a tall man in a matte black restraint suit lined with inhibitor circuitry that pulsed faintly beneath the fabric. His wrists were bound behind his back by a magnetic clasp. A collar of dark alloy encircled his throat, embedded with micro-explosive fail-safes and neural suppressors. A thin cable trailed from the collar to a portable dampening unit carried by one of the off-world marshals behind him. The marshals did not step onto the platform enough. They remained inside the ship, as if the planet was safer than standing too close to him. Prisoner designation. One of Gravehold's lieutenants demanded over encrypted comms. The marshal's voice crackled through the subject: A-01, clearance level Omega Black. Transfer authority overrides all local jurisdiction by A-01. Not a name, not even a number in sequence. The lieutenant hesitated. Charges, a pause. Classified. The wind surged, whipping the prisoner's dark hair across his face. He did not react. He did not look at the guards. His head remained slightly lowered, posture straight but relaxed, as though he were walking into a quiet room rather than the most secure prison in human history. The marshal added one final statement before the ramp began to close. Do not remove the car under any circumstances. The ship lifted off immediately after the prisoner stepped forward. No signatures, no farewell. Gone. The platform doors sealed behind the inmate, cutting off the storm's roar. Inside, the air was sterile and cold. White lights flickered on overhead, scanning him from every angle. Holographic grids passed over his body, analyzing muscle density, bone structure, neural activity. The reading spiked, then flattened, as if the systems themselves could not decide what they were seeing. "Move," the lieutenant ordered. 2 guards stepped forward cautiously, though neither touched him. The magnetic restraints around his wrists adjusted automatically, guiding his arms at a locked position closer to his spine. He followed without resistance. He had not spoken a word. They escorted him through the main corridor of Gravehold. Other inmates sensed the shift in atmosphere long before they sought him. In their sealed containment cells, some stood. Others backed away from the transparent barriers. One began muttering frantically in a language no one had logged before. Another slammed his fists repeatedly against his own skull until sedatives flooded his chamber. The guards exchanged uneasy glances. Inmate reactions were not uncommon, but this was different. It was synchronized, as if something deep and instinctive had stirred. They reached the central processing chamber. Warden Lias Varn waited there, hands clasped behind his back, expression carved from stone. His sharp eyes assessed the newcomer in silence.
No.
Varn said calmly, "The one?" No response. Lifted his head slightly. For the first time, the overhead lights caught his eyes. They were an unnatural shade, pale, almost silver, like frost spreading across glass. And not glowing, not yet, but wrong. There was no fear in them, no anger, no confusion. The lieutenant hesitated. "Sir, transfer protocol states." "I am aware of the protocol." The magnetic class released with a metallic click. The prisoner's arms fell naturally to his sides. He did not rub his wrists. He did not flex his fingers. He simply stood. Free. Varn stepped closer than the guards were comfortable with. "Subject ALO 01, you are now under the authority of Gravehold Correctional Facility. You will comply with all directives. You will answer when addressed." A silence. The air pressure in the chamber seemed to dip by a fraction. Varn felt it, though he refused to show it. "What were you before this?" He asked quietly. "Soldier, experiment, weapon." The prisoner's gaze shifted to meet his fully. In that instant, one of the overhead light panels burst, showering sparks onto the floor. The guards raised their rifles immediately. "Stand down," Varn snapped. The prisoner had not moved. As security systems ran diagnostics, power levels flickered erratically across the wall displays before stabilizing. Varn studied him for a long moment. "Take him to containment sector 0. A ripple of unease passed through the room. Sector 0 was not used. It had been constructed during the prison's original build phase. Prototype containment block design for threats theoretical in nature. The cells there were suspended in isolated gravity wells, separated from the main power grid. Manual overrides required triple authentication and physical keys stored in different sectors of the facility. It was excessive, which meant it was appropriate. The walk to Sector 0 was longer than any other corridor in the prison. The lights dimmed gradually as they descended deeper beneath the surface. The hum of the core reactor vibrated faintly through the floor plates. Halfway down the corridor, one of the guards faltered. Enough. He had been watching the prisoner's reflection in the polished wall. For a split second, the reflection had not matched. Where the man walked calmly, the reflection had stood still. The watching bat blinked. It was normal again. He said nothing. They reached the final door, a circular vault with hazard symbols. It opened slowly, revealing a cylindrical chamber suspended over a dark shaft. In the center floated a transparent cell held aloft by magnetic fields. No visible seams. No physical door. Entry required phase matter displacement controlled from the command deck. The prisoner stepped onto the platform without being told. The field activated. He rose slowly into the cell. The barrier shimmered closed around him. Inside, there was nothing, no bed, no bench, just empty space and controlled gravity. He remained standing. The guards backed away as the vault door sealed. For several long seconds, no one spoke. "Vitals?" Varn asked. A technician's voice crackled through the comm. "Stable. Heart rate minimal. Neural activity fluctuating. Fluctuating how?" A pause. "It's synchronized with the reactor output." Varn's jaw tightened. That's not possible. Another silence. Then the technician whispered, "Sir, the reactor output is synchronizing within the floating cell." The prisoner slowly closed his eyes. The lights in Sector 0 dimmed, not because of a malfunction, because something was drawing power inward. Across the prison, inmates began to stir again. Some screamed, others knelt without understanding why. Deep beneath Greyhold, the core reactor pulsed once, harder than it ever had before. In his cell, the mysterious prisoner opened his eyes. For the briefest moment, they glowed silver, and every guard in Sector 0 felt the same unshakable realization settle into their bones. They were not containing him. The chamber sat 3 levels below the main cell blocks, sealed behind a vault door nearly a meter thick. Its walls were forged from layered reactive alloy, capable of absorbing kinetic force equivalent to orbital bombardment. A circular observation deck overlooked the arena from above, shielded by transparent composite glass that could withstand temperatures hotter than reentry burn. Inside the arena, the lighting was dim by design. Shadows clung to the corners. The floor could shift from solid titanium to a magnetic flux field at the touch of a command. Atmospheric composition was adjustable. Gravity was programmable. It was not built to house prisoners. It was built to test predators. Years earlier, a deep space salvage crew had recovered fragments of an unidentified alien vessel drifting beyond the Kuiper Belt. The wreckage contained biological specimens. Alive. The creatures were unlike anything cataloged in human history. Multi-jointed limbs, dense exoskeletal plating, muscle fibers capable of explosive acceleration. Their blood carried corrosive properties. Their eyes reflected infrared and ultraviolet spectra simultaneously. They were efficient. They were lethal. And they adapted quickly. Transporting them to Earth was deemed too risky. Destroying them would have meant losing invaluable data. So they were brought to Gravehold, to the pit. The first human test subject lasted 4 minutes and 12 seconds. The second, less than 2. After that, Varn refined the process. He did not send ordinary inmates inside, only those whose crimes had destabilized entire colonies, war criminals, genetic extremists, augmented soldiers who believed themselves invincible, individuals who had boasted, publicly or privately, that they could not be killed. The chamber proved them wrong. Varn would stand at the observation glass, hands folded behind his back, watching without flinching as the creatures stalked their prey. He studied every move failure, every scream. He did not enjoy it. Enjoyment implied emotion. For him, it was prestige. You see, he once told a visiting defense official from Earth Command, execution is inefficient. It ends data collection. He gestured toward the arena below where something moved in the half-light. This provides certainty. Certainty that no human could survive prolonged exposure. Enough. Certainty that humanity remained superior because it controlled the cage. The creatures themselves had developed a hierarchy. There were 4 remaining now. The largest stood nearly 3 meters tall when fully upright, its spine arched like a drawn blade. Another moved low to the ground, limbs splayed wide, capable of bursts of speed that blurred security cameras. The smallest was the most unpredictable. Its neural patterns suggested tactical reasoning beyond simple predation. They did not attack the walls. They did not waste energy. They waited. Varn admired that. Predators understand boundaries, he often said. The respect. He believed that no human could ever command such respect from them. Fear, perhaps. Pain, certainly. But not dominance. The pit was the final measure. When an inmate became too unstable for conventional containment, when even Sector 0's gravity wells could not suppress violent outbursts, Varn authorized transfer experimental Chamber 7. There were no appeals, no delays. The process was clinical. The prisoner would be stripped of external augmentations. Neural inhibitors would be removed to ensure authentic data. A single door would open at the base of the chamber. The inmate would step inside. Then the door would seal. For the first few seconds, there was always silence, a fragile, almost hopeful pause. Some prisoners attempted negotiation. Others screamed threats upward at the observation deck. A few prayed. The creatures would remain motionless at first, studying. Then one would move, fast, precise. The rest followed. Varn watched heart rate spike on his display panel. He observed stress hormone surges. He measured survival times down to milliseconds. Afterward, automated systems would sterilize the chamber. Remains were incinerated and converted into energy for the core reactor. Nothing wasted. Survival is a myth. Varn told his senior staff during one briefing, given the correct predator, every human is prey. He believed it completely. Even when rumors began circulating among the guards, they whispered that the creatures were changing, enough that they were less aggressive during routine observation cycles. That sometimes they seemed to watch the observation deck rather than the handlers below. Varn dismissed it as anthropomorphism, projecting emotion on animals as weakness, he said sharply. But there were moments, rare, fleeting, when he stood alone in the darkened observation deck and felt something shift in the air below. The creatures would cluster together in the shadows, their eyeless faces tilted upward. The order came directly from Warden Elias Varn's private terminal, encrypted under Omega Black clearance. No committee vote. No psychological review, just a single authorization code unlocking experimental chamber 7. Subject A-1 was to be transferred immediately. 2 guards entered Sector 0 wearing full tactical exo armor, neural shields active, pulse rifles humming at maximum charge. The floating containment cell shimmered as its gravity field lowered. The transparent barrier phased open with a low and feel enough resonant hum. As O1 stood exactly where they had left him. He had not slept. He had not sat. For 48 hours, surveillance showed no measurable movement beyond breathing. His silver eyes followed the guards as they stepped onto the platform. Prisoner 8001. One of them announced, voice steadier than he felt. Enough. You are being relocated for assessment. No response. Magnetic restraint snapped around the prisoner's wrists again. The inhibitor collar pulsed brighter, injecting a surge of neural static designed to disrupt abnormal brainwave activity. The monitor spiked. Then, vital stable. Control reported over comms. Enough. Though there was hesitation in the technician's tone, they escorted him through the lower corridors of Grave Hold. The air grew colder as they descended. The hum of the core reactor vibrated through the metal floor like a distant heartbeat. Warning glyphs lined the walls ahead. Experiment win in G-R-Z-D power sign in L-O-L-Y. The circular vault door to Chamber 7 stood waiting. Even closed, it radiated menace. Inside that chamber, 4 alien organisms waited in engineered darkness. Salvaged from a drifting wreck at the edge of human space, they had adapted disturbingly well to captivity. Their skeletal frames were layered in black, chitin-like armor. Their limbs bent at too many angles. Their jaws split vertically to reveal rings of serrated bone. They did not roar. They calculated. The largest crouched near the center of the arena, motionless as a statue. Another clung to the wall at an unnatural angle, claws embedded in alloy. The smallest moved in slow circular patterns, mapping territory through scent and vibration. They sensed change before the door opened. On the observation deck above, Warden Varn stood with his hands behind his back. Scientists filled the curved console stations around him. Holographic displays projected biometric readouts, atmospheric conditions, gravitational controls. Every variable was adjustable. Begin recording, Varn said calmly. The vault door split open with a grinding metallic groan. A lower hatch inside the arena rised apart. The guards removed A's little one's wrist restraints, but left the inhibitor collar active. Without being pushed, he stepped forward into the chamber, the hatch sealed behind him. For a moment, there was only silence. Dim lights flickered on overhead, revealing the expanse of the circular arena. Scratches scarred the walls from previous trials. Dark stains marked where other inmates had failed. A-1 stood at the center. Still, the creatures shifted. The wall, clinging predator, dropped soundlessly to the floor. The largest lifted its elongated skull, eyeless face angling toward the newcomer. The smallest froze mid-step. Subject heart rate. Varn asked. Minimal elevation, a technician replied. Adrenal response negligible. The largest creature moved first. It did not charge blindly. It circled, claws scraping faint sparks against metal. Its body coiled with restrained violence. Enough. The air inside the chamber thickened as atmospheric controls subtly reduced oxygen saturation to amplify stress.